Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 1 of our clinical guide on maternal history taking in the delivery room. In this lesson, we will focus on the information that must be gathered when a pregnant woman arrives in labor, and on the warning signs that require immediate action. Maternal history taking is more than completing an admission form. It helps the healthcare team understand the woman's present condition, her pregnancy history, and the possible risks to both mother and baby. As nursing students, your role is to collect information accurately, communicate respectfully, recognize danger signs, and report your findings promptly under supervision. As you watch, imagine that you are receiving a patient in the delivery room. Ask yourself, what should I observe first? What questions should I prioritize? And when should I stop asking questions and call for help? Menstrual history helps establish pregnancy dating and provides information about the woman's reproductive health. Ask her age at menarche and describe her usual cycle, including regularity and cycle length. Determine the first day of her last menstrual period, or LMP. Clarify whether the date is certain and whether that period was normal for her. LMP-based dating may be less reliable when cycles are irregular, when the woman recently stopped hormonal contraception, or when the date is uncertain. Ask about the earliest ultrasound, including its date and reported findings. Early pregnancy ultrasound is generally the most accurate ultrasound method for establishing or confirming gestational age. Gestational age is recorded in completed weeks and days. For example, 38 weeks and 4 days means the patient has completed 38 full weeks and is 4 days into the next week. Accurate dating affects the interpretation of labor, fetal maturity, and clinical decisions, so document both the source and certainty of the date. Let us use the last menstrual period to calculate an estimated date of delivery. Admission assessment is the first organized evaluation performed when a woman presents in labor. Its purpose is to determine the likely stage of labor, assess maternal and fetal condition, and identify urgent risks. The assessment has 3 connected goals. First, identify risks, such as bleeding, severe hypertension, abnormal fetal heart rate, or signs of infection. Second, monitor labor progress by reviewing contractions, membrane status, fetal movement, and other findings. Third, use the collected information to guide interventions, referral, and preparation for birth. Remember that risk assessment is continuous. A woman who initially appears low risk can develop a complication at any time. Fetal findings must also be interpreted together with the maternal condition. We do not focus only on the fetal heart rate while overlooking the mother's blood pressure, symptoms, bleeding, temperature, or level of consciousness. Maternal and fetal well-being are closely connected. With that foundation, let us review the learning outcomes and the student's scope of practice. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to establish rapport and gather an accurate maternal history using therapeutic communication. You should also be able to calculate and interpret gravida para status using GTPAL and determine the estimated date of delivery using the available pregnancy dating information. You will learn to examine the patient's present labor complaints, including contractions, leakage of fluid, vaginal bleeding, pelvic pressure, and fetal movement. Most importantly, you should be able to recognize findings that require immediate escalation. A clear safety boundary applies throughout this lesson. Nursing students collect data only under the direct supervision of the clinical instructor or authorized delivery room personnel. Do not independently perform restricted procedures, make a medical diagnosis, or delay referral while trying to complete an assessment. When an emergency is suspected, patient safety takes priority over completing the history. We will now apply these safety boundaries from the moment the patient arrives. When the patient arrives, begin with 3 steps. Introduce and observe, ask rapid triage questions, and decide whether the situation is stable or urgent. First, introduce yourself, explain your role, and verify the patient's identity using 2 identifiers, such as her full name and date of birth. At the same time, observe her general appearance. Is she breathing normally? Is she conscious and able to respond? Is there heavy bleeding, severe distress, an urge to push, or a visible fetal part? Never leave an unstable patient unattended. Next, ask focused questions. How many weeks pregnant are you? When did the contractions begin? Has your water broken? Is there vaginal bleeding? Is the baby moving? These questions quickly reveal the patient's gestational age and the possibility of active labor or a complication. Finally, make the decision fork. If an emergency is suspected, obtain assistance immediately and follow unit protocol. If the patient is stable, proceed to the detailed maternal history. Rapid triage must always come before a lengthy interview. Before continuing the detailed history, we must recognize the findings that cannot wait. These findings require immediate escalation. Do not wait until the entire history is completed. Heavy vaginal bleeding may indicate placental abruption, placenta previa, or another obstetric emergency. Signs of imminent birth include a strong urge to push, a visible fetal part, or a prolapsed umbilical cord. Neurological symptoms such as seizure, loss of consciousness, severe headache, or visual disturbance may be associated with severe preeclampsia or eclampsia. Severe hypertension, particularly a blood pressure of 160/110 mm of mercury or higher, requires urgent evaluation. Possible fetal compromise includes a persistently abnormal fetal heart rate, absent fetal movement, or meconium-stained fluid, especially when accompanied by other concerning findings. Signs of systemic compromise include fever, cyanosis, chest pain, pallor, or hypotension. If any of these findings are present, remain with the patient, call the clinical instructor or authorized delivery room staff, and assist according to your assigned role and facility protocol. Your responsibility is to recognize, report, and respond safely within your scope. When the patient is stable, effective communication helps us obtain accurate information. The quality of the maternal history depends greatly on how questions are asked. Labor is physically and emotionally demanding, so communication should be calm, respectful, and non-judgmental. Avoid questions that sound blaming, such as, "Why did you wait so long before coming?" A better approach is, "Can you tell me what happened before you decided to come to the hospital?" Instead of expressing doubt about when the membranes ruptured, help the woman recall details by asking about the time, color, odor, and amount of fluid she noticed. Pause questioning during contractions. Allow the patient to breathe and cope, then continue when she is ready. Ask sensitive questions privately, particularly those involving substance use, intimate partner violence, sexual history, or personal safety. Use trauma-informed care by explaining what will happen, requesting consent, and offering choices whenever possible. Therapeutic communication is not only courteous. It promotes trust, improves the accuracy of information, and supports patient-centered care. After rapid triage confirms that the patient is stable, gather essential identifying information. This includes her full name, age, preferred language, and relevant religious or cultural needs. Also record the attending provider, the name and contact details of the chosen support person, and the time of admission. Next, determine the chief complaint. Document the patient's main concern in her own words whenever possible. Common reasons for seeking care include painful contractions, leakage of fluid, vaginal bleeding, pelvic pressure, and decreased fetal movement. For example, rather than documenting only labor pain, you may write that the patient reports, "My contractions became stronger and closer together at midnight." Her own description gives the team useful clinical context. Age is also relevant. Adolescents and women of advanced maternal age may have increased obstetric risks and may require closer evaluation. However, communicate without labeling or judging the patient. The goal is to identify clinical needs while preserving dignity and respect. Next, we will examine each present labor complaint in a systematic way. Present labor complaints should be assessed systematically. For contractions, ask about onset, frequency, duration, intensity, regularity, and perceived severity. Frequency is measured from the beginning of one contraction to the beginning of the next, while duration is measured from the beginning to the end of the same contraction. Ask whether the patient feels pelvic pressure, an urge to have a bowel movement, or an urge to push. These may indicate rapid labor progress or imminent birth. Ask about any injury, fall, or trauma, including when it occurred and what happened afterward. If fluid leakage is reported, determine the time it began and the fluid's color, amount, and odor. Ask about fetal movement and whether it has decreased or stopped. For vaginal bleeding, distinguish a small amount of blood-tinged mucus, which may represent bloody show, from bright red or heavy bleeding, which is abnormal and must be escalated. True labor contractions generally become more regular, frequent, longer, and stronger and are not relieved by rest. History findings support the assessment, but labor status is confirmed by authorized personnel through the complete clinical evaluation. After assessing the present complaint, review the patient's previous pregnancies using GTPAL. GTPAL summarizes the patient's pregnancy history. G means gravida, or the total number of pregnancies, including the current pregnancy, regardless of outcome. T is the number of pregnancies delivered at term, meaning 37 completed weeks or later. P is the number delivered preterm, after viability but before 37 completed weeks. A refers to pregnancies ending before the recognized age of viability, whether spontaneous or induced. L is the number of living children. A multiple pregnancy counts as one pregnancy under term or preterm, but each living child is counted under L. Let us apply this to the example. The woman is currently pregnant. Previously, she had one term birth, one preterm twin birth with both twins living, and one spontaneous abortion. Including the current pregnancy, gravida is 4. Term is 1, preterm is 1, abortion is 1, and living is 3. Therefore, her status is G4, T1, P1, A1, L3. Always verify each prior pregnancy rather than relying only on a memorized formula. We will now connect the obstetric history with menstrual history and pregnancy dating. Naegele's rule is a traditional method for estimating the date of delivery from the first day of the last menstrual period. Add 7 days, subtract 3 months, and add 1 year. Using the example, the LMP is February 10, 2026. Add 7 days, giving February 17. Subtract 3 months, giving November 17, 2025. Then add 1 year. The estimated date of delivery is November 17, 2026. Another way to reach the same answer is to add 7 days and 9 months. Remember that this is an estimate, not a guaranteed birth date. The calculation assumes a regular 28-day menstrual cycle with ovulation near day 14. If the cycle is irregular or the LMP is uncertain, the healthcare team will compare the result with the earliest reliable ultrasound and other clinical information. Always document how the estimated date was established. Dating is only one part of the history. Previous pregnancy outcomes also influence current care. Previous pregnancy outcomes can reveal risks that may recur in the current labor. For each pregnancy, ask about gestational age at birth, mode of delivery, complications, the newborn's condition, and the mother's postpartum recovery. Clarify whether previous births were spontaneous vaginal, assisted vaginal, or cesarean. For cesarean births, the type of uterine incision is clinically important. The abdominal skin scar does not reliably tell us the uterine incision. Report any available operative history to the team. Ask about hypertensive disorders, including preeclampsia or eclampsia, and hemorrhagic events such as postpartum hemorrhage or retained placenta. Review fetal and neonatal outcomes, including preterm birth, shoulder dystocia, stillbirth, unusually high birth weight, or need for special care. Also ask about the woman's experience. A previous traumatic or negative birth can affect fear, trust, pain coping, and preferences during the present labor. Previous cesarean birth and serious obstetric complications must be reported promptly because they may change monitoring and birth planning. Next, review what has happened during the current pregnancy. A complete maternal history also includes medical, surgical, gynecologic, family, social, medication, and allergy information. For medical history, ask about hypertension, diabetes, asthma, heart disease, epilepsy, and other chronic conditions. Determine whether each condition is controlled and what treatment is being used. Surgical and gynecologic history should include prior uterine, pelvic, or cervical procedures because scars or cervical changes may affect labor and birth. Family history may reveal genetic conditions, bleeding disorders, multiple pregnancy, hypertension, or preeclampsia. Social and psychosocial assessment includes support systems, tobacco, alcohol or drug use, mental well-being, and possible intimate partner violence. Questions about violence and safety must be asked privately. For medications, record the exact name, dose if known, reason for use, and time of the last dose. For allergies, never write only allergic. Identify the substance, such as a medication or latex, and describe the exact reaction. Distinguishing nausea from anaphylaxis, for example, affects immediate clinical decisions. Finally, let us integrate all these elements in one clinical scenario. Let us apply the lesson. The patient is 35 years old, G4, T2, P0, A1, L2, at 38 weeks and 5 days. She has a previous cesarean birth. She reports greenish fluid leakage for 4 hours, her blood pressure is 150/96, she has a severe headache, and the fetal heart rate is 168 beats per minute. The red flags include meconium-stained fluid, a fetal heart rate above the normal baseline range, hypertension with a severe headache, and a uterine scar from the previous cesarean birth. Together, these findings raise concern for maternal hypertensive complications and possible fetal compromise. The immediate action is to stop the routine interview and notify the clinical instructor.